What if the person your child trusted the most was the very one you should fear? Rachel thought she was just coming home a little early from her business trip, just a surprise visit. But the moment she stepped through the front door, something felt wrong. A light left on. And then, a man's voice in her daughter's room. What Rachel uncovered that night would unravel a year-long nightmare she never saw coming. A terrifying secret her daughter had kept hidden to protect her. And the man behind it, he lived right down the hall. You won't believe what really happened. Before we move on, please let us know where you're listening from. Rachel Morgan had just finished a long project in Chicago and couldn't wait to see her 13-year-old daughter, Emily. She decided to return home to Santa Monica 2 days early, hoping to surprise her little girl and make up for lost time. As Rachel rolled her suitcase up the familiar path to her apartment, a voice called out, "Rachel? Is that you?" It was Mrs. Evelyn Harper, their elderly neighbor. "You're back already?" She smiled warmly, holding a grocery bag and wearing her floral scarf. Rachel nodded. "Came home early to surprise Emily? I've missed her." Mrs. Harper's smile faded just a little. "She's been acting different. Doesn't come out much anymore. I even saw her speaking with a man once outside the building. I called out to her, and she bolted." Rachel froze. "A man? Who?" "I couldn't tell, but she looked scared." Trying to stay calm, Rachel thanked her and quickly entered the building. Something in her gut felt off. Apartment 307 looked just as she had left it, neat and warm. But as soon as Rachel stepped inside, she noticed something strange. The living room light was on. Upstairs, faint whispers. She held her breath. A man's voice. "Remember, it's our secret. Don't tell your mom." Emily's trembling voice. I don't want to." Rachel's blood ran cold. She charged up the stairs and threw open the bedroom door. There was Emily, curled up on the bed, and beside her sat Brandon Keller, a neighbor she'd once spoken to in passing. "What are you doing in my daughter's room?" Rachel screamed. Brandon didn't flinch. His posture was eerily calm, as though he had every right to be there. "Calm down, Rachel. You're jumping to conclusions. We were just talking, that's all." Emily didn't say a word. "Mom," she whispered, her voice barely audible through her fear. Rachel's protective instincts kicked in hard. "Get out of my house. Now," she shouted. Brandon keeping his gaze fixed on Rachel like a predator sizing up his next move. "You're overreacting," he said coolly. "You always did have a flair for the dramatic. I care about Emily. She trusts me. We've developed a connection." Rachel stepped in front of her daughter, shielding her. "Don't you dare talk about trust. You crossed the line. No, you bulldozed through it." Brandon took a slow step forward. "You know, you should really be careful with that temper." "Sometimes," he said, "anger makes people do things they regret." Rachel stood her ground, but her heart was pounding. Without another word, Brandon turned toward the door. But before he exited, he glanced back over his shoulder, not at Rachel, but at Emily. His eyes locked onto Emily's, and in that split second, a silent threat passed between them. Rachel caught it. Her stomach turned cold. That night, Rachel called her old friend, Detective James Foster. "James, I think Emily is in danger, and the man is Brandon Keller." "Brandon, your neighbor?" She explained everything. James promised to look into Brandon's background, but warned Rachel to be cautious. If Brandon was dangerous, she shouldn't face him alone. Later that night, a noise startled her awake. The window downstairs was wide open. A shadow moved in the hallway. Knife in hand, Rachel crept toward Emily's room, only to find Brandon inside, looming by the window. He smiled coldly, his presence dark and unnatural against the soft glow of the hallway light. "Relax," he said with a tone that sent shivers down Rachel's spine. "I was just checking on her. That's what good neighbors do, right?" Rachel stepped forward, her voice rising with fury. "Get out of my house, Brandon, now, or I swear I'll call the police." Brandon's expression didn't change. "And what will you tell them?" he asked. "That I care about your daughter? That I'm worried about her? That's not illegal, Rachel." Behind her, Emily let out a sharp cry. Rachel instinctively moved in front of her daughter, arms protectively outstretched. "Stay away from her," Rachel shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. "You're not welcome here. Not now, not ever." Brandon took a step forward, slowly, deliberately, his eyes gleaming with something far more dangerous than defiance. Rachel didn't wait. Without thinking, she drew her fist back and punched him, hard, right across the jaw. The sound echoed sharply through the hallway. Brandon stumbled back, caught off guard. For a moment, the smirk was gone, replaced by a twisted snarl. His eyes, once cold, now burned with rage. "You'll regret that," he growled. And then, just like that, he turned and slipped into the darkness of the night. leaving behind a mother trembling with adrenaline and a daughter sobbing in her arms. But Rachel knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. The next morning, Rachel met James at Cornerstone Cafe. She told him everything. He frowned at the bruise on her arm. That from him? She nodded. Self-defense. James gave her a folder. You were right. He's been accused before, multiple times. Inappropriate conduct with minors. But there was never enough proof to convict. Rachel's breath caught. So he's done this before? Yes. And we need hard evidence to stop him for good. That night, Rachel installed security cameras James provided. She barely slept, eyes glued to the live footage, and then a figure appeared at the front door. It was Brandon, watching the camera, hand on the doorknob. The door wasn't locked. Rachel ran, heart pounding. Brandon was already inside. I told you I'd be back, he said calmly. Get out, Rachel screamed, blocking Emily. Brandon laughed. Emily and I have a bond. You wouldn't understand. You're sick, Rachel hissed. He lunged. Emily screamed. Rachel grabbed the closest object, a lamp, and smashed it across his head. He bled, but it didn't stop him. Rachel grabbed Emily's hand. Run! They made it downstairs. The front door was bolted shut. Brandon caught up and grabbed Emily by the hair. Let her go. Rachel clawed at his arms. He struck her hard, knocking her to the ground. Mommy! Emily sobbed. Suddenly, bang, bang, police, open up. Neighbors had heard the screams. Brandon dropped Emily and panicked. The front door burst open. James and 2 officers tackled him to the ground. Rachel and Emily collapsed into each other's arms, sobbing. Though Brandon was arrested, Emily couldn't sleep alone. She jumped at noises. She couldn't go back to school. Rachel tried everything. Therapy, support groups, even quitting her job to stay home. Emily finally admitted the truth. He told me if I ever said anything, he'd hurt you or take you away. Rachel's heart shattered. Emily had been enduring this for a year. I thought I was protecting you, the girl sobbed. I was so scared. Rachel hugged her. You're the bravest girl I know, and I'll never leave you. Rachel met with James and their lawyer, Michael Green. We need Emily to testify, Michael said. She's terrified, Rachel admitted. It would be our strongest evidence. Rachel sat with her daughter that night. Do you think you can tell the court what happened? Emily hesitated. Then softly, I'll do it. For you. On trial day, Emily took the stand, voice shaking but clear. Emily sat on the witness stand, her small hands tightly clenched in her lap. She took a trembling breath, her voice barely above a whisper. He said if I didn't listen. She paused, her throat tightening. He'd hurt my mom. Gasps rippled through the room. Emily looked directly at the judge, her voice gaining strength, her back just a little straighter. He said he'd take her away from me, that if I told anyone she'd be gone. I didn't know what to do. I was scared all the time. But, her lip quivered. I don't want to be afraid anymore. There was no sound but the muffled sobs of those in the gallery. On the other side of the courtroom, Brandon Keller sat stiffly, face flushed, jaw clenched. He didn't look smug anymore. He looked exposed. The judge adjusted her glasses, her face stern and resolute. Thank you, Emily, she said solemnly. You were very brave. After a short recess, the verdict was read. Brandon Keller, you are found guilty on all charges, stalking, unlawful entry, and child endangerment. The gavel slammed down. You are hereby sentenced to 15 years in state prison. Rachel closed her eyes, overwhelmed with emotion. She rushed to her daughter, kneeling beside her as they embraced in front of the entire courtroom. You did it, baby, Rachel whispered through tears. You were so brave. I'm so proud of you. Emily looked up at her mother with watery eyes and a fragile but genuine smile. He can't hurt us anymore, right? Rachel nodded, holding her tightly. Never again. And for the first time in what felt like forever, the grip of fear began to loosen. It was a long road, but slowly, Emily began to heal. She smiled again, went back to school. Reconnected with her friend Noah, in the months that followed the trial, Rachel found herself stepping into a new role. She began speaking at support groups across Los Angeles, community centers, shelters, church basements, anywhere women gathered, searching for strength. She didn't hold back. She told the truth, raw and unfiltered. About the fear, about the guilt, about how evil sometimes wears a familiar face. I thought I was protecting my daughter by working hard, by providing for her, Rachel said to one group. But I missed the danger that was right in front of us. And when I realized it, I swore I would never let it touch her again. Tears often filled the eyes of the women listening. Some held their children tighter. Meanwhile, far from the warmth of healing and community, Brandon Keller was living the consequences of his crimes. Locked behind bars at Riverview Correctional Facility, he quickly learned the hard truth. Even among the most hardened criminals, there are lines you don't cross. And predators, especially those who harm children, were at the very bottom. He had lost his freedom, yes, but he had also lost the illusion of power, the twisted respect he'd once demanded. Now, he was just another disgraced predator in a system that would grind him down day after day. Alone. Hated. Forgotten. One morning, Emily turned to her mom at the beach. "Mom, I think I'm ready to live again." Rachel held her hand tightly. "You're safe now, Emily. You always will be." They watched the sun rise over the waves, free at last. If you were Rachel, would you have seen the signs in time? And more importantly, how far would you go to protect the one you love? Please let us know in the comments below, as your story might help someone else find their voice. Thank you so much for tuning in to Storyline Narratives.